So Aaliyah Wallace and her 4 daughters were evicted from their Fort Worth apartment after Wallace fatally shot a 14-year-old she said was trying to enter through a window. Wallace has established a GoFundMe to help her family get a new home. Folks, I neglected to add this GoFundMe link in the description, but I'll do it right after today's show for any of you who might want to contribute to her efforts. The single mom who fatally shot a 14-year-old she said was trying to enter her window has established a GoFundMe after she and her children were evicted. The money will help Aaliyah Wallace and her 4 young daughters get a fresh start in a new home. Wallace called 911 in the early morning hours of December 14th to report a prowler. When officers responded to the Peppertree Acres apartment, she told them that the person had left the area. So at least that time the cops showed up. Wallace called again shortly before 3 a.m. to report the person had come back and was attempting to enter their home. When the police returned to the scene, officers found 14-year-old Devin Baker on the ground in the front yard with at least 1 gunshot wound to the torso. He died at the scene. Now, of course, the headline of today's show is that no one's coming to save you. Here, the police did come. But did they come in time to save her? No, they came too late. They did not arrive in time to save Aaliyah Wallace from being compelled to use deadly defensive force to protect herself and her 4 daughters. They came after the fight was over. And after the fight is over, folks, that means either you've already done what you needed to do to win the physical fight, or they're drawing a chalk line around you because you didn't win the physical fight, or taking you to get a rape kit done. So the police came, but they didn't come in time to do any good, and that's rather the point. Wallace told KDFW Channel 4 in an exclusive interview that she didn't know the age of the person on the other side of the window, but she was afraid they would come in and hurt her or her daughters. Now there's some ambiguity here, because the previous report was that the 14-year-old was coming in, and now they're making it sound as if he was maybe just outside on the other side of the window, which would be a different fact pattern, wouldn't it? Because do we have unlawful enforceable entry then? No, we wouldn't. So in which case, she would not get the benefit of that legal presumption I just described. Of course, she would still be privileged to act in self-defense, but then she would need to be able to articulate the facts that put her in imminent fear of deadly force harm. And she'd be tasked with convincing people that those perceptions were reasonable perceptions. And they could be. A repeated prowler outside the window at 3 a.m., outside your daughter's window? Maybe. But is that enough to justify, for example, if it turns out she simply fired a shot through the window at someone who wasn't actually trying to break in? That would be more awkward. Oh, here she says, I stood in the hallway and could see him standing at the window, lifting it up. Let's see. Online police reports show officers responded to Wallace's home at least twice before the night of the shooting. A window was vandalized or damaged on November 29th, and several Nike Air Jordan shoes are listed as items of stolen in a burglary at that address on December 12th. According to the fundraiser, Wallace got a gun for protection after experiencing several break-ins at her apartment. This went against my apartment rules, Wallace wrote. However, they provided no security or assistance with fixing the broken window that gave the burglar easy access to my home. The Peppertree Acres Apartments declined, and what a nice name, Peppertree Acres Apartments, declined to comment on their gun policy or the eviction, citing the ongoing nature of the investigation, and officials from J. Allen Management, the company that manages the apartments, were not immediately available for comment. So this is actually an interesting scenario, because it sounds almost as if, given the rapidity and frequency of these burglaries, that a burglar broke this window so that it could no longer be secured. So he'd have repeated easy access through the window. Could these be different burglars? Like one broke the window on November 29th, and then a different burglar in the community came on December 12th and again on December 14th? Or is it the same burglar? I mean, one would think it's probably the same person, right? They know the window's broken and unsecured because they broke it. Now, I often cautious that when a legal presumption of highly defensible property statute calls for unlawful and forcible entry, something needs to be broken for the forcible entry requirement. Here, if the window was not secured, nothing had to be broken to get in, could an argument be made that there was no forcible entry? Nothing was broken. Maybe an aggressive prosecutor could make that argument in an effort to deny the defense that legal presumption of reasonable care. But what if we could know that the window wasn't broken on December 14th by this burglar, but he did break it on November 29th? And that's the forcible part of the forcible and unlawful entry. Yeah, I would make that argument with a straight face. Does the forcible have to be in the moment that the use of force occurs? I would argue not. Of course, the burglar here is dead, so we likely will never know who actually vandalized and broke the window on the 29th. So my point in this case is this woman had a gun. The police did not show up in time, but because she had a gun, she was able to defend herself and her 4 daughters in the absence of timely police assistance.